Hey, let's talk about some other news and notes in the wrestling world. Our topic today is going to be Taz, and we're going to spend some time talking about your colleague Taz. But before we do, I wanted to at least hit some notes. We talked about Wrestle Dream and AEW's big pay per view event, and what the future may or may not hold for Bryan Danielson. But there's been some other news sort of outside the tent I wanted to touch on, and there's some sad news. Former Ring of Honor executive Joe Koff
Yeah.
passed away. This caught me by surprise. This guy maybe never really got the credit he deserved for keeping so many people employed in the wrestling business as long as he did. He saved Ring of Honor on multiple occasions and afforded a whole host of talent that we all see wrestle now on television every week an opportunity to continue to be professional wrestlers. I hope history is kind to Mr. Joe Koff because, boy, he sure was a friend of professional wrestling, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and a sweetheart of a guy. He was almost too nice because you always wondered. Of course, you get cynical and hardened and grizzled in the wrestling business, specifically trusting people. Joe was very trustworthy. He kept his word. If he told you he was going to call you, he always did. Always came through. He had answers. And he was committed to pro wrestling. He loved it as much as anybody. He reminded me of Howard Finkel in a certain degree that he just couldn't get enough of the product. And as you said, Conrad, there's a lot of guys right now that are earning a paycheck that owe it to Joe Koff. And he gave people a chance, and he had a good eye for talent, and he just was a sweetheart of a guy. I kept waiting for him to crack. Well, this is not going to last forever. This kindness and the genuality of Joe Koff to those that he interacted with. So I'm sad. Condolences to his family and all of his friends. I know a lot of them listen to the show, but he was a good guy. He was a guy that you could kind of mirror your career after. In other words, keep your word and love wrestling. And if you keep your word and you love wrestling, more often than not, you're going to finish where you want to finish at the end of the race.
Shout out to Joe Koff and his whole family and all that knew him. I only had the opportunity to meet Mr. Koff on one occasion. I think we did one separate call, like a group conference call, but by all accounts, everyone I knew who ever really knew him just thought the world of him. And man, you just hate to see that sort of tragic news.
I worked with him a lot, Connie. With Gary Jester connected me with Joe because they were buddies, and Joe kept the Ring of Honor brand alive, which created another television show for talent to work on, more exposure for the business. So I appreciate Gary Jester having the faith in me to turn me over to Joe. But I really enjoyed working with Joe. He was just a sweetheart of a guy, and smart. And like I said, he had a great eye for talent. At least in my opinion, he did. So he'll be missed. There's no doubt about it.
We should also talk about some other happy news if we can. Over the weekend, we saw a new champion crowned. I can't believe this is real. Zack Sabre Jr. is the new champ for New Japan. He's the IWGP World Champion. He's been one of the best technical wrestlers for a long, long time. And he's really been making a name for himself in Japan these last 7 years. And now he finds himself in the top spot for the entire, not just promotion, but he's the king of Japan right now. I mean, he won the title at the King of Pro Wrestling event. This is a big deal for a young guy like Zack Sabre Jr. And man, I know he's been at it for a long time, but this is a high watermark for anyone's career, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's very, very talented, very unique. Has his own style. He has a unique move sets or a move set that takes a life of its own. Really creative with his offense. He's a racehorse, and I'm somewhat sure, that we'll see him again in AEW sooner than later because of all of our, we've got a lot of the New Japan guys that, Okada, et cetera, that are doing well. I got a text message today from Kenny Omega, It's his birthday, as a matter of fact. So any of you guys on social media want to reach out, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. He'll be back with us sooner than later, as we expect. But I think that whole New Japan connection will extend to their champion at some point in time. We got a lot of guys on AEW that have booked with Kenny, or excuse me, with
Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, Zack Sabre Jr., not Zack Sabre Sr. No, I'm kidding. But I expect to see him in an AEW ring, and I hope I get to call some of his matches. He's very entertaining, and he's very creative. He's unique. He's different, and he doesn't have that overwhelming body. He's lean. He's lanky. But boy, he's a good athlete, and I'm proud to congratulate him for his success. And like I said, we look forward to seeing him again in an AEW ring somewhere down the road.
No doubt he had his battles with Bryan Danielson too. Can't wait to see what's next for Zack Sabre Jr. We know what's next for Tanahashi. I don't know if you saw this, Jim, but he announced his retirement. It's official. Wrestle Kingdom 2026. So not the Wrestle Kingdom that's a few months away, but about 15 months from now, Tanahashi is going to hang it up. And I think that's interesting because he was the top guy in New Japan at the same time that Cena was the top guy in WWE. And they're both spending 2025 doing farewell tours. I like that. I hope we see more of that in wrestling.
I like that too, Conrad. Sorry to interrupt. I like that too. I agree with you. When I did Wrestle Kingdom back in the day, a few years back, I worked with Matt Striker on that show from the Tokyo Dome. He was one of the first guys that walked up to me to introduce me and welcome me to Tokyo, and wish me good luck, and if I need anything. He spoke good enough English that we could communicate. And so, but he's the ace. He was the ace there for a long time, and he pulled that company. He got hot. He connected with his audience. He got hot, and they rode that horse as far as they could go. And I've always liked his work. He incorporated a little bit of the American style with his Japanese stuff. So he's had a wonderful career. So I congratulate him on that. And I like the way they plan. It's not going to be like what they just found out yesterday. He's not going to be here next week. He's retiring. They can work around that now. They can do a farewell tour or whatever. He's colorful. He's charismatic, and a real decent human being. So good for him. And I hope that he passes through AEW again. I got to believe that he will at some point. At least that's my hope. Maybe wishful thinking. I don't know. But he's a superstar, and he made himself a legend in Japan and in other parts of the world as well.